Today we are going to say the quiet part out loud. Quantum risk is not an abrupt cliff. It's a cost curve. And the curve is moving down faster than most ecosystems can coordinate upgrades. So if you hold stablecoins, tokenized assets, DeFi, collateral, or any other chain tokens that are secured by today's elliptical cryptography, you are not just betting on math. You are betting on their migration speed. And migration to post-quantum is not a patch. It is a multi-year coordination event across wallets, custody, exchanges, market makers, issuers, governance, and every single user individually. Today, I have Parks with me. I'm Daria, and welcome back to the Control Loop.
Yeah, Daria, thanks for introducing the topic of today. And what I would like first is just give me the punchline, Daria. What is the first uncomfortable truth that we are going to discuss today?
Well, that would be that the attacker's capability in quantum can improve in big discontinuous jumps. But the defender migration improves only in slow bureaucratic steps. So that mismatch is where the real problem is.
I think you are referring to the compression trend, Daria, which came in the latest paper released on February. So just walk me through what actually has happened in that paper and what is it saying?
Right, so this new paper about Pinnacle Architecture has been continuing the trend that's been there for years already, but is now getting to real area when it can actually attack the cryptography that we use today in crypto systems. So they use RSA as their measuring stick for Shor style progress, and Shor is the algorithm that can factor and extract your private key out of your public key, and elliptic curves uses kind of more or less the same logic. So the point is that directional pressure on fault tolerant research is lowering the resource costs of breaking this sort of cryptography. So if you look at 5 years ago, 2021, what was published is that factoring RSA at 2000 bits would take 8 hours with 20 million physical qubits. Then fast forward 4 years, there have been research in between that, but in 2025, Google Quantum AI have published that they were able to reduce it to less than 1 million qubits to factor RSA in a few days in similar kind of architecture of quantum computer, but just with algorithmic and error correction coding improvements. So that's 20-time improvement in 4 years. Now, last month, the Pinnacle Architecture paper has been making a lot of noise. They are claiming that they can factor RSA 2000 bits in less than 100,000 physical qubits. They use some very specific assumptions about it, but we already have existing quantum computers of a company like IonQ that are pretty good fitting for this architecture and for applying it. So we're going to be waiting for experimental proofs about it, but just in the papers, it's already showing more than 2x reduction in the cost of the attack in the last 5 years. That is only going to be going down. Critically is that it's a very consistent trend, and we do not want to be betting basically against it. And if you would want to ask me do I think there is going to be a cryptographically relevant quantum computer by 2030, maybe not exactly, but if you would ask me if I'm willing to bet there is not going to be a cryptographically relevant quantum computer by 2030, that's a totally different question, and that's not something you want to be betting against as a crypto person, and especially as a cryptographic protocol.
All right, Daria, I think this actually says one thing is that so from 2025, the founders of blockchains, Solana and layer ones were saying that quantum is far off. They require 1 million qubits to just break the cryptography of crypto. And suddenly within 8-9 months in 2026, the benchmark has lowered down to 100K, that next reduction. And I am pretty hopeful that with the advancements of AI, of what we are seeing in today's terms, this will further reduce it by a factor of 10 next year papers. So, I mean, what I can say from this trend is that if anybody says that my keys and my cryptos are safe today, it's completely ignorant statement. I mean, the facts are lying here, and I think the time to act is now. Skeptics always say, Daria, the papers are not hardware, and what do we tell them that it looks credible to them?
Yes, skeptics can always say what it is that they always say, but they have to listen to actually the prominent voices in the space. So one of those voices would be like Scott Aaronson. He has responded to this new paper about the Pinnacle Architecture, and he has framed it as that, yes, it is an order of magnitude improvement over the prior estimates that we have that such an attacks would take. But he also obviously emphasized like there is an uncertainty of engineering constraints and of the timeline and obviously of the budget that they can have to build it. But the responsible position of somebody that is going to be affected by this, I mean crypto, is that we should not be like date predicting and see who gets like the closer date, but we should not be dismissing it. Dismissing it is risk. Being early is a quantifiable risk. But being late is a risk of going directly to zero. So we have to be building migration paths today because the timelines are uncertain, and uncertainty is what can make it happen faster.
Got it. I think what you're saying is essentially, if you take a fire insurance, 10 years before your house is going to burn, it's fine, still fine. You get the insurance cheap. But if you try to buy it on the date of the fire, I don't know. I think only God can help you. So, I mean, this is what we have been discussing at EternaX, and that is why we have built it from the ground up. So, why is crypto uniquely exposed, Daria, compared to normal enterprise security because of this threat?
There is several features of crypto that we have used as features so far that make it like uniquely exposed to quantum. Two biggest properties that I would say is that public keys are everywhere. They are in the open, they're very exposed. Addresses and signatures are also everywhere. And that is the feature of like what makes a public key actually public. You want it to be public. But by this fact, it means that a quantum computer can see it, it can try to factor it if you have a lot of tokens sitting in there. And second is at the difference of like centralized banking institution, finality on crypto is irreversible. So if your authorization keys to your wallets or your custody or anything in your smart contracts are compromised, the ownership, the whole property right, the settlement credibility collapses. You cannot just call your bank and say, hey, somebody's stolen my money, please block that transaction. That's not going to happen in crypto. So this is why today top institutions are already framing like quantum as board level risk. So like Citibank has published their whole article on quantum threat being $1 trillion security risk. The migration pressure is already institutionalized, and institutions, they are actually facing kind of an easier time than crypto because they're centralized and they can basically pull the switch and put a lot of money into the audit and they're done. That's not happening in crypto protocols. So NIST has finalized their post-quantum cryptography. So post-quantum cryptography exists and it was finalized in 2024, and Cloudflare already enables it. NSA has emphasized to like the federal agencies that they have to take time now to plan, prepare, to budget their quantum resistant transition so that they are required to be quantum resistant by 2030 already. That is coming from the federal level. But cryptocurrencies and protocols cannot pretend that it's just like isolated from their policy and try to kind of come up with their own assumptions. That's a losing game to me.
Makes sense, Larry. I think the argument that you're putting out is that half of the world has moved to post-quantum security. Half of the internet is already, being run on the post-quantum security, and crypto seems to pay no heed to that. Where the asset is 3.2 trillion of asset is sitting, and the tokenization of the whole world, that is 72 trillion, is going to happen. So everything is going to come on chain, but nobody seems to care about this particular very big threat. So if there is a quantum computer which is developed within 3 years from now or 4 years from now, where Ethereum says that the target for them looks 2029 for the shifting and the migration. So if there is any, God forbid, any attack or any quantum computer or anything that is developed, which we have already shared above, that it is already targeting 200k qubit size of quantum computing by 2029. So, I mean, it's a lot of risk. So Ethereum alone, just to mention, controls more than $500 billion of assets, and similarly, we'll cover the Bitcoin as well. Arya, what? Now I think that the Ethereum 2029 target looks very silly to me. And would you care to explain why?
Yes, so the Ethereum's 2029 target is actually coming from Justin Drake on Unchained. He came to that podcast and when asked when would Ethereum kind of start moving, he said that the plan right now would be to upgrade every single piece of like Ethereum cryptography to be post-quantum secure by 2029. But the problem there is that this chain migration roadmap, and they are one of the like most kind of spoken about it, they are competing against their hardware ambition roadmaps from quantum computer big companies and small startups. So, and they are not going to be coordinating with each other on their timelines. So, second, that the one that comes from hardware would be like Ionic has published their own roadmap where they actually target 2029 would be 200,000 physical qubits, which is more than enough for our estimates to break the Ethereum cryptography and the whole cryptography that's being used in elliptic curve. So you have two very competing estimates. So even if Ionic, say, cannot achieve 200K, they are going in that direction. So maybe they miss it for a year. Maybe they miss it maybe maximum for 2. And they have it on a public roadmap that shifts capital, that shifts procurements, that shifts adversary expectations. And if they are able to achieve it, why are we saying that somebody's bigger is not going to be able to maybe achieve it faster, be it Google or be it nation states that are not friendly, for whom we have no idea what their progress is because they're not publishing anything. So the nuance has to be stated very responsibly. We are seeing roughly order of magnitude drops in resource estimates of quantum attacks every few years, not like 10x every year, but it is compressing. And the compression is going to continue because of the research that's compounding. So small numbers are entering the conversation much sooner than ecosystems can migrate. So 2029 to me is very risky posture. Your Defender timelines as a big decentralized protocol are measured in years, but attack capability can actually improve in jumps. So I'm not making an argument that like Ethereum will fail tomorrow, but the argument is if they are going to be waiting for the end of this decade to upgrade as a governance bet, it's not a security plan that somebody would want to invest in, especially big institutions.
No, makes sense, Daria. I think this is exactly where once this news came out, what we discussed this issue. It was completely the compression is completely 10x within 1 year, and I am a strong believer of AI, and I'm not sure about the listeners, but I'm a very strong believer that AI would further compress and bring new techniques of fault tolerance and things which are relevant for the quantum, and this will further compress. And the whole point is that you should not, this is a race. It's not a timeline, it's a race against the infrastructure. So either the world has to stop investing in quantum projects, either it has to completely stop investing in the improvement of the quantum computers, or the crypto has to move today. And when I say today, it means day one, that is today. So 2026 should be the time when the crypto becomes PQ safe and not 2029. So that's yeah, it's yesterday. Yeah, the correct way is to PQ. We should be PQ quantum yesterday. So go deeper on Bitcoin, Daria. I think people, a lot of like 60% of the Bitcoin crypto value is logged in Bitcoin. And again, Bitcoin is the community is slow. We know that the governance community is very slow. So what is your take on Bitcoin?
Yeah, so Bitcoin case is slightly different from most of the chains. One is that they are a bigger target because of all of the Satoshi's coins that everybody said are going to be attacked first, that there's like 1 million of Bitcoin sitting in there. Then they also have a much slower governance. That's 2, what makes them different. And 3 is why they can still claim and try to deny quantum threat is because Bitcoin's proof of work consensus is actually secure against quantum computer. But users' private keys are not secure still, so there is a lot of discussion there. So their upgrade process is very conservative for a reason. It is a feature for stability, but it is a constraint for emergency migrations. So, like for instance, the author of the BIP 360, Ethan Hellman, he has quoted an estimate of like 7 years for Bitcoin to migrate to full quantum resilience, even if it started like yesterday. And he's been framing it as like optimistic because consensus is hard. Even if you just say, okay, they upgrade protocol tomorrow, for every user to migrate to a quantum safe wallet, the whole chain is going to have to be doing only that for like 2 years. Every block is going to be full of transactions of people moving their money to quantum safe UTXOs. That's like basically stalls it. So it doesn't matter whether you like agree with exact timelines or not. The strategic implication is that if migrations are measured in multiples of years, then the question is not will quantum arrive by 2030? The question is, can the ecosystem actually coordinate before the time and coordinate faster than the attacker capability rises? And what if it arrives earlier than they expected? Are they willing to risk it basically going to zero? So Bitcoin adds another hard constraint because their asset base is so huge and address set is so huge, and many coins are lost in old formats and like cold storage that is not easily retrievable. Migration is mostly people. It's custody, it's all the operations, it's everybody who's holding any amount of Bitcoin is facing the risk of literally losing it. So Bitcoin teaches us the lesson that, your security is still limited by governance throughput, and the people who are developing quantum computers do not have that limit.
Sure, Daria. I think you have expressed the threat enough. Like let me put it into perspective. So Bitcoin 7 years. 7 years from now is basically something like 2020, 2033, 2034, something in that range. And we already have commitments from the projects who are building quantum computers that in 2029 they will have enough compute to break the cryptography. I mean, the users can judge here. I would rather want to put a number to the Bitcoin problem. Now the number is Bitcoin current market price is somewhere around 1.4 trillion dollars, and whatever it may be, it's not about the wallets whose public keys is exposed and who's not. I'm not getting into that ecosystem, but Bitcoin is not just the market cap. There is Bitcoin ETFs, there is Bitcoin DATs, and all those things which are the layers above that. So what I'm trying to say here is that if there is a negative news as well on the development of the quantum computers good enough to break the cryptography from 2026, that is today, to 2032 or 33 for Bitcoin, the price will crash to zero. That is a very big concern. So the price risk is something that I'm more, bothered about here, Daria, that, if there is a fear of something, that fear is what will reprice the asset in this coming future. So, and that's a major concern for every other L1 blockchain issued token. And when we are talking about the tokens, it's all the tokens: Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, everything. You should not kind of, there is no one, there's no two parts to it. All the tokens are exposed to this risk. So there is a very strong effort that is that is needed at this level to be done, and that is where we stand at EternaX, which is the first highest throughput post quantum markets infrastructure blockchain built for this purpose, just to protect your tokens and give you a PQ safe environment where you can settle, trade, and make payments safely. So, Daria, the missing piece with, which people, in our discussions, you also went to, a couple of events in Italy. and you have spoken to people, one missing thing that you told me people don't understand is even when the chains like Ethereum, Solana, or any other layer ones on which the settlement is happening, they try to become PQ native, there is a challenge, and that is the TPS loss. So I would love you to highlight, why even if they change, they will still lose to EternaX.
Right. So this is actually then the second chapter of difficulties of post-quantum specifically for blockchains, because while everybody have heard that like there is a post-quantum threat, not much people are actually thinking about that you cannot like just upgrade protocol because the quantum cryptography is totally different from the one that we use today. So what complicates it is that blockchains are not like enterprise servers. They do require verification by many third parties at scale. They have block size limits, they have bandwidth limits, and they have gas constraints. So the signatures that everybody's mostly using today, Ethereum, Solana, Sui, basically almost everyone, are elliptic curves, and they take 64 byte commonly. So your transaction is now like whatever your address, the contract call, the amount, whatever you want to do, and the 64 byte signature. Now, if you look at the well-known post-quantum signatures that are already standardized, that exist, that are used by like Cloudflare and everybody else, the smallest of them currently available is called Falcon, and it is 666 bytes. That is 10 times more. So your transaction becomes 90% signature and 10% data. Okay. So if you imagine that now your signature is 10 times larger, you have to pay for that tax in bandwidths that's going to take to propagate your transaction, verification CPU time for that, storage of all those transactions in all the nodes that are participating, the state growth that happens every block little by little and compounds into terabytes. And then decentralization basically takes the biggest toll because nodes is going to have to use pumpier hardware to be able to process all of that. So that's why like upgrade later is a plan that has like a hidden wall in it. Post-quantum is a throughput shock. It is a fee shock on gas, also on every single individual user that's going to be paying all of those taxes, because it's not the protocols that are going to be paying, that is users. So you can just adopt heavy signature without trying to engineer for it. And everybody's kind of like Ethereum and all of them trying to invent their way of engineering it out of them by using like ZK aggregation and all of those other fancy things. So the real wedge is that like security upgrades that destroy throughput, they also destroy liquidity, because markets cannot operate all like this dinosaur speeds. They will migrate where execution stays fast, and that's what we are enabling actually at EternaX.
Dari, I think what is being covered here is essentially that when there is post-quantum and the news of quantum computers improving comes out, so what I'm doing is I'm losing the value in my token. The token goes to gradually it reduces in value. It's going to eventually zero. And the second is when these protocols or projects they there, then also the speed is like so slow that the fees would be very high and the transactions would not move at the market speed. So I mean, it's a completely double whammy for me as a user and the holder of the tokens. So I mean, whatever it may be for the infrastructure players, but for me as the holder, it's like a double pain. So I would, from my standpoint, I would want to get away from this pain as soon as possible. But I'd leave it to the good users, good listeners, and to their judgment. Would you explain to me, Daria, what EternaX properly means, so that people just get the final crux of what EternaX is? The website is, I know we revised and we improved the website. The new website is also there, so people can look in. We provide the link in the description. So that's EternaX essentially.
EternaX's biggest difference in mode is that it's built to be PQ native day one and not retrofitted later. So the target is real users in real liquid markets, that is stablecoins, tokenized cash, real world assets, and high velocity venues such as perpetuals. So what EternaX is optimizing for is simultaneously few things. One of them is obviously authorization safety. You cannot do anything with that. And that is post-quantum native settlement from day one, from Genesis. The second is market speed. EternaX is engineered to preserve market speed execution and PQ safety without accepting this tax on bandwidths that other projects are going to have to accept. And third is auditable privacy. So it's selective disclosure controls for compliant flows. So the core technical bet that we are doing is that the protocol native PQ signature scheme that is actually right now under peer review in a paper that we are going to be publishing in the due time. And it is targeting much, much smaller signature footprint than anything that is available actually today in a post-quantum cryptography. It is positioned explicitly for hard performance and to avoid the bandwidth overhead and drag of the existing PQ primitives. So the key idea is that if you are choosing PQ primitives that balloon your signature in a protocol, you are risking TPS taxes and fee pressure on the end users. But if you as EternaX design protocol layer to be post-quantum with low overhead, with high performance, you keep fast finality, you keep high throughput, and you provide impeccable authorization safety to your user. So EternaX is not about PQ someday. EternaX is PQ native settlement with market speed execution as a first-class design from Genesis. This maps directly to the asset and stablecoin reality. You cannot count on migrate later. Migrate later is fracturing liquidity. So your collateral and settlement credibility are in question, and distribution leaves before you patch.
Essentially, the key takeaway is that there is a recent development which kind of improved the risk of post-quantum X. And because it has done that, the urgency which was possibly for some crypto companies and crypto projects was migrate later, 2029, 2032, 2033, whatever, should have become 2026. That is now. And EternaX stands on the same date. We are post-quantum day one. If you issue stable coins with us or today, they are post-quantum day one. You don't need to bother. If you issue RWA, is again post-quantum day one. So I'll quickly recap what has happened. So 3 takeaways, Daria. Quantum risk is the cost curve. It is not a cliff. So the credible trend is downward pressure on the resource requirements. That is the 10x improvement that we already discussed. The migration is the bottleneck. Bitcoin is the cleanest warning for that. Governance and coordinations are measured in years for them. 7 years, Bitcoin is saying. 4 years, Ethereum is saying. And I don't know if the users have those time, and either they have to stop the quantum computer development for that time period, or they have to face the blunt of it. So the winning posture is Daria here, the PQ native day one at market speed. And that is EternaX, because the markets will not wait for the last decade roadmaps to catch up the hardware ambitions, signals like Ionic 2029 targets. So the rational move is not to panic. The rational move is to ship the migration path before the market forces it. And that is, simply put, do it with EternaX. So yeah, Daria, thanks to you for covering these amazing topics, and we'll cover these more topics in weeks to come. And thanks a lot to our listeners and users.
Thank you, everyone, and see you in the next episodes of the Control Loop.